All right. All right, the clock is striking 6 outside, so I want to call to order and welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting for the Redevelopment Commission. Zeb, can we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Sharon Bryant.
Here.
Jimmy Dillahunt.
Here.
Sarah Proctor.
Here.
Leander Morgan has been excused due to a family emergency. Steve Strickland. Julius Parham. Tabari Wallace. Beth Walker.
Here.
Kit Paraguay.
Here.
Madam Chair, Jimmy Dillahunt.
Here.
Madam
Excuse me,
Chair.
that's senior, not junior. I think that's what you had on some of the documents I read.
Yes, sir. We have quorum. And
Excellent.
for the record, Commissioner Stephen Strickland.
Here. Is here. All right. Well, thank you very much. We will get started. And as before we do though, I would like to thank all of the commissioners that attended the recent Alderman's Building meeting concerning the building that we have been talking about for a long time for the health and wellness. And I really appreciate people's efforts to be there. I feel like that is part of building bridges between the work we're doing on the Redevelopment Commission, the work the aldermen are doing, and I know that the aldermen, our ex officio members, know they are always welcome to come to our meeting. So I just want to thank you guys for going, those of you that were able to attend. Next order of business is to consider approving the agenda. Everybody received their agenda, and unless you take an exception or have any discussion, can I get a motion?
Make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as it stands. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We've approved the agenda. We also had in our packets the minutes from the March 13th meeting. If you've had a chance to read through those, and I would also entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the March minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion that needs to take place about the minutes? Okay, I'm going to say all in favor of approving the minutes then?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries and the minutes are approved for the March 13th meeting. Next up is item number 5 on our agenda, which is our mission statement and our guiding principles. And Commissioner Strickland, I saw that you read the mission statement last time, so I'm going to go right beside you and ask Commissioner Bryant to read it for us. Do you have it handy?
She needs to go.
Oh, okay, sorry. There you go.
Okay. Past, present, future, equal times, respect others' opinion, listen to building consensus, share accurate information, public perception, stay focused, be action-oriented, believe.
Thank you. And then we'll move around this way, and I'll get you to read the mission at the top of the page, Sarah.
Okay. The New Bern Redevelopment Commission, leading the way for community transformation and improvement by directly addressing community needs in the vital areas of public health, infrastructure, housing, and economic development. The Commission is committed to an accountable, transparent, and publicly driven process.
Thank you, commissioners, for setting the tone for us this evening. Item number 6 on the agenda is public comment. And I'm thinking that we don't have any public comment tonight, but I just want to check. Okay. So we have no public comment. We will move on to item number 7. And item number 7 is to consider a resolution to empower the chair to execute an agreement and conveyance with Carolina East for the Health and Wellness Clinic. And the presenter for that was Tabari. Do you want to wait on him and come back to it, or do you want to move forward with just kind of a general overview?
Well, I can certainly read for Mr. Wallace, and if he has additional comments, I'm sure he won't hesitate to add when he gets here. At the Alderman meeting on March 26th, the Redevelopment Commission requested that the City of New Bern convey 727 3rd Avenue to the Commission so that the Commission can subsequently reconvey the property to Carolina East Health System, subject to restrictive covenants requiring CEHS to construct, develop, and operate a convenient care clinic for no less than 5 years. Additionally, the Commission requested the Board of Aldermen approve the above described conveyance to Carolina East Health System and approve the transfer of the remaining $313,018.88 that was previously allocated to the Commission for the construction of the Health and Wellness Center. The hospital will take the city's investment and add their own corporate investment into the building and the operation of the convenient care clinic for the community. And tonight, the board needs to consider empowering the chair to execute that agreement that is outlined above. It is also attached in your packet.
Okay. And we have been discussing this for quite a while within the Redevelopment Commission, and we've done 2 presentations, one for information and then one for the conveyance to the alderman. So they approved that, and that's where we are now, is to move forward with that conveyance with Carolina East for the Health and Wellness Center.
Correct.
Just take the next step.
Yep. So you just need a motion for the resolution in front of you so that we can go ahead and execute with the hospital.
I'll make a motion that we empower the chair to execute the resolution and agreement related to the transfer of the property and funds to Carolina East Health.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second, and I'd like to open it up for discussion about that. If there's any concerns?
I have a question, or maybe a statement. And I understand that this board had been working on that project for a full 5 years. The statement I want to make for the new members coming on board, it should have been, need to have been brought up before that. But to that new member, I think that would cut out a lot of controversy. Since it was brought up before the new members came on. So, is there any new projects that the board entirety need to know about other than that?
Absolutely. I agree.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bill.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Any other discussion? Any corrections from our legal counsel on the motion, or we did a good job, actually. We meaning Sarah, the other
She did a fantastic job.
lawyer in the group, okay.
And just for everybody's edification, the resolution that's before you also enables the vice chair to sign and execute any subsequent documents that might be related to the conveyance. But I think that's encapsulated in Ms. Proctor's motion.
Okay, thank you for adding that. Guess we will need to do a roll call vote for that
Yes,
Sure.
ma'am.
adoption, okay?
Jimmy Dillahunt,
Yes.
Sharon Bryant,
Yes.
Sarah Proctor,
Yes.
Stephen Strickland,
Yes.
Beth Walker,
Yes,
Kip Paraguay.
Yes.
Motion carries.
okay. Thank you, guys. The next item is, there's 3 items on the agenda that are almost identical. And the reason there's 3 is because they're the 3 properties that we have developed along Walt Bellamy Avenue. That is 1002, 1004, and 1006. They're consecutive properties on Walt Bellamy. And if you haven't driven by there in a while, you'll be amazed because those houses are complete. They are ready to go. Now, last time I talked to you, Zeb, they were awaiting the certificate of occupancy. Is that still the case? Or
That's correct.
Okay.
The surveyor has passed it on to the city's inspection department, and I talked to the chief inspector this afternoon, and it is on the schedule.
Okay. So for those 3 properties now, we've done what we said we were going to do, and up until this time, as you've known from being on the commission, they've been reserved from the sellable lots list. They've been off the table for sale. But now that they are completed houses, our goal is to get them on the sellable lots list. And I believe that's what this resolution is, moving the property, each one of those, from being not for sale to for sale. So there's some things to consider there. And I think, Jamie, if I'm right, if we're in agreement of all the properties, we can make one motion.
Yes,
To
ma'am.
do that.
You can do one motion so long as the vote is unanimous.
Okay. And if it's not unanimous, we need to consider each one individually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And a little more background information on those properties. Once they were well under construction, Zeb had them appraised with a real estate appraiser. And I can tell you they all came in, the average appraisal price is $160,000. They vary just a little bit. 1002 is $161,000. 1004 is $163,000, and then 1006 is $160,000. So we've been just saying, rounding it to $160,000. And in order for us to sell these, if you know how we do our sales, it is 75% of the tax value or the appraisal price. In this case, is that correct? We can
That's correct.
go with the appraisal price, not the tax value, because it hasn't been adjusted yet, I'm guessing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We can set any price we want, can't we?
Yes, sir.
We can.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I would like to, tonight, we say we're going to put them for sale. I think we should also know that they appraise at $160,000 and maybe consider setting that price at that amount as opposed to our usual.
And just so everybody's clear, you're setting a minimum bid amount. So this is the minimum amount someone would have to bid in order to purchase this property. It could be through the upset bid process, if that's the process you choose to utilize, that number could increase over time, but you would be setting a floor, not a ceiling. And you can do that as a percentage of some number, whether it's assessed value, appraised value, or you could do it as just a number based on the consensus from the members.
Okay. Some other things to consider are, the goal of this project was to do an affordable housing project. So I think we want to keep it mindful of where we're setting the price for the house, because it is, like you said, the base bid for interest. Now, on the other hand, I believe our executive directors had a lot of interest. People have been asking and waiting for them to go on the market, and right now they're not on our sellable list.
Correct. I got another call today.
Okay, so we're moving them to the sellable list, but I believe it would be prudent to also set the base price.
If there was a organization that came along and wanted to buy those houses as a block, does it still have to go through the upset bid process?
Not necessarily. So if there is an entity carrying out a public purpose, you all could sell or convey 1, 2, or all 3 of those properties to that organization with or without consideration and subject to conditions.
And to that point, as we are saying there's 3 properties, and if we're all unanimous they're selling, we are not necessarily saying we're going to sell them to the same person, correct? We're just saying they're all 3 for sale.
Correct.
Okay. And the other consideration is these monies come back to the Redevelopment Commission for future projects.
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay.
I'll confirm.
Okay. I want to make sure there's as much information as everybody has the same amount of information. Yes.
Is now the right time to ask
Yeah.
questions? Or, Zeb, do you remember off the top of your head, I don't have the budget that we approved, but how much did we spend on those 3 houses? I feel like it was $500, but...
We were given $500 and some change to spend, and as of March 31st, We have allotted $447, but the last draw has not been taken from that.
Oh, okay, so we don't have a final.
We'll be somewhere around the 460 mark.
460, okay. And if we, just thinking of the minimum, or starting bid, if we did 160 each, that's 480 if my calculator's right, because I can't do math.
Your calculator is quite right.
Okay, so that, I just wanted to make sure that worked out. And then what happens if we set it at 160 and that's like, folks don't, even with all the interest, folks don't have an appetite for that, then they just sit there for sale and we have to come back and lower it, or what, is there a process for that?
That would be the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
I would suggest. But yes,
Okay.
we would have to reassess.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if that's, just to
I
hear.
have a
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
Are we working with any bankers as for the first-time home buyer? Have we contacted any bankers that may be interested in leading that project on as a first-time home buyer?
Actually, there's 3 based right here in New Bern, and I've been pointing people to them and working with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency to make sure that all the down payment assistance that the state offers is at the fingertips of our citizens, so that we can make sure that potential home buyers are as equipped as possible.
So you're saying had no local banks been contacted as a first-time home buyer other than the North Carolina? BB&T, Truett, they have programs as for the first-time home buyers.
Yes, North Carolina Housing Finance Agency has preferred banker list on its website, and those are the folks that I've been primarily working with, only because they know the federal and state programs and how to navigate them, and they're recognized on that level. It's also worth noting to your question, Commissioner Proctor, that these funds were appropriated to the commission by Alderman Bobby Astor. So we're not necessarily we're not trying to replenish our own funds. These were appropriated funds to seed and to multiply. And so I think it's worth noting that without Alderman Astor's contribution and goodwill to the commission, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Thank you for that, because that is true.
Is there any thoughts about putting restrictive covenants on the sale of these properties, about what can go on the properties, so that we can have some semblance of guarantee that they be maintained properly and don't become storage yards for junk cars and other things, and outbuildings? If you look along some of that area there's some really ratty outbuildings on some of those lots.
And Mr. Paragoy, to that point, we have a procedure that's in place. So I think under our current procedure, when someone makes an offer to purchase, they come to this board and they make a presentation about their intended use. So it may be that a potential offeror will come and say that I intend to occupy this home as my primary residence. And then at that point, you have an opportunity based on that person's presentation to you all to determine what, if any, restrictions might be appropriate under that circumstance. And then if you decide to initiate the upset bid process, any conditions that you all think are appropriate would attach at that point, unless you want to deviate from that policy and there's a consensus to do so.
Well, I think in the home purchasing process, to know what the conditions were up front relates to value and everything else. And so if it's something, I would think that a potential buyer would want to understand ahead of time, rather than putting in an offer and so forth and going through all that stuff and getting financing lined up, and then we have a condition that makes it undesirable for them to continue.
And you can certainly, if there's a majority of you all that want to establish certain conditions now, you certainly can do so.
I know that's been important in the past, as especially a lot of our lots have been empty lots that people have asked to buy for various reasons. And the last thing we wanted was an empty lot to turn into a car park or, you know, a place for storage of something else other than a house. But these houses, you know, they take up a pretty good amount of the lot. There's not a whole lot of space left on the lot.
One condition or set of conditions that you might want to consider is about affordability. So currently, as they sit without any restrictions, anyone in the world, whether it's a person intending to have this home as their primary residence or someone who's an investor or any person can make an offer and participate in that bidding process. If you all, understanding your goals and objectives in the redevelopment plan, would like to limit or pose any types of conditions as it relates to affordability or any other conditions related to those types of considerations, that's something that you might want to discuss.
Okay.
I think I heard her right. All offers will be considered within reason.
Offers will be considered, and we've set a start, or we will hopefully to set a starting price for the process.
And we have to get to that price tonight. Or is it?
We do, because if we don't and we put them out for sale, then the base price based on how we've set up in the past is 3/4 of the appraised value.
3/4 of the tax value.
Correct.
Correct.
Tax value. So I don't know if Mr. Huff has the current tax value. I don't think that the property has been reassessed by the county tax assessor to include the improvements.
That is correct. It has not. And so if someone were to offer a bid at 3/4 of the tax assessed value right now, we would be talking about $4,000. So
Yeah.
I would suggest you name a price. It doesn't have to be the price, but some price that reflects, because our obligation as a public body is to make sure that we get some semblance of market value for the development.
And I think that will also, I mean, that as we're looking at home ownership, or that brings another level of property management, you know, taking care of property if someone owns it. Commissioner Strickland, yes.
One comment to start with. I'll thank you for mentioning Alderman Astor. I think anytime this project comes up, gratitude should be expressed to him continuously, because him coming to us with this, literally saying this is what I want to do and this is what I want to do, is the whole reason we're having this conversation right now. So anytime that's mentioned, I applaud it. So we can please keep that up. Commissioner Proctor asked about the cost for the project, and you gave a number that you were thinking is going to roughly come in $460, something of that nature. Is that our all-in cost, or is that basically what we just paid the contractor for the build project?
That is the build project,
Okay.
not the total development cost.
Yes, so
the total development cost is much more than that, because that would include the clearing of the land, the old greenhouse, and all that. And I can certainly, if given direction by the commission, I can certainly put that together for you all.
It's about $58,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
For all three or each?
No,
We
for
bought it as one.
the whole site,
we bought it as
before
one.
we divided
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So
So
that's $38,000 in purchase price and then 20-some thousand in demo cost.
So just to kind of have everyone on the same page, for the build, we do come out to the good, but overall for the project, there's still very much going to be a loss on it, which, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we're here for. But just from a reality standpoint, I don't want anyone to kind of come away with the perspective that we're raking in cash off doing these projects, because it's not at all.
Good point.
Do we need to have all of these projects in the same, I guess, all together with how we go about doing the treatment? because my thought process is there may be some appetite for doing them, having one that may be affordable, one that is more market. And again, refer back to you, Commissioner Proctor. I remember a comment being made about we're not really accomplishing anything if we put an income restriction on every single piece of property that we build ourselves. We want to serve the community, we want to help the folks out there, but in that same vein, if you're putting an income restriction on it, then you are limiting anyone else from outside of the neighborhood moving into the neighborhood. And then do we have to treat them all the same as far as if there was a mention of a nonprofit partner? Do we have to lock that in right now and say that if we wanted to work with a nonprofit, we have to do all three of them together? I guess, are we pinning ourselves in if we set a sales price on that right now and say we want 160 and we use that as a price and go forward? If we then decide to deal with a nonprofit in mass for all three properties, are we hemmed in by setting that price?
You're not. If you set a price today and facts change, market conditions change, a majority of you all can change that decision. As far as conditions might go, depending on your nonprofit or public agency that you might want to work with, the conditions can make the project and whole more attractive or less attractive, depending on what public purpose they're carrying it out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Sharon, do you have anything else for you, Commissioner Parker? Commissioner Bearfield?
I'm just think that it would behoove us to have some conversation about covenants on the property. And very limited, when you ride through the redevelopment area, the majority of the blight that you see is lack of maintenance of the properties, and outbuildings and junk cars. I mean, they contribute the majority of the blighting conditions that I've observed over the years. And I think it behooves us to do what we can do to make sure that doesn't become a possibility for that area. So they're my comments, but.
Okay.
Who, if we did that, we're the ones that enforce it. It's not like a city code. It's just a covenant in the land. So then it just gets brought before us and we try to enforce it because it's.
Yes. So you or your successor in interest would enforce the covenants. However, I think some of the covenants that have been imposed in the past were very similar to our nuisance abatement code restrictions. So even if you all didn't enforce those types of covenants yourselves, there are other governmental enforcement mechanisms that could do so. Not enforce the covenants, but remedy the issue.
Because they really were in line with those.
Correct.
Okay, issues.
So if we, I was just thinking ahead, if we say you can't build, an outbuilding more than X percent of the property, because I think it's fair to let them have a lawnmower shed if they want one. That's just me. But, you say you can't just build like 1, 2, or 3 down, has something built to the very edge of their property, and it's like just plywood and it looks terrible. If you do that with the building, so if they go to put one on their property, would the building inspector, whoever, be able to stop them from doing that?
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
They don't have to have a building permit to do it.
To do an outbuilding, okay.
Well, depending on the size of the outbuilding, you
Yeah.
don't have to have
Size
a building
size
permit.
and cost.
But the inspections department would not enforce your covenants.
Would not, okay, that's what I was
They
wondering.
would enforce city ordinances.
I don't think that's a reason not to do them. I'm just curious how, I don't want to create I think it's good to put them there, something there to show folks. I think we've identified the main things, like no outbuildings larger, I don't know what percent, but I don't think we just want to say no outbuildings. I think we may say.
I'm not, I wouldn't think so either.
Yeah.
But I
And
think we
then
can limit the size and
cars.
request them to be the same color as the house, either by paint or siding material or whatever, so that they all blend in and create the character of the little mini neighborhood that's there, those three homes, and set some standards for maybe some other people down the street as they want to move on to something like that. It's I'm not saying we prohibit it. I'm just saying that we might be able to offer some guidance on how it would be done and make sure that they get anchored into the ground so they don't blow away when the next hurricane comes along and tear up the house, things of that nature. It's
And then maintenance, I don't know what,
I don't know
what we
the
do.
maintenance is, it is what it is.
I mean, we've got the grass mowing ordinance, like we have stuff in the city for lawns, and does the city have junk cars, or do we need to? The city has that, so.
And what you might be inclined to do if covenants are something that you all feel strongly about is you might give staff direction to bring some language back to you to address those concerns that you've articulated.
And maybe we still can put them on the list, but just sort of when you're is it inappropriate for when he's talking to folks, say, like, this is what we're thinking about, XYZ restrictions if we have a consensus or whatever. So folks are, given a heads up that you can't just put a whole building, build the whole back of
If
your
there's
lot.
consensus from a majority of the members that you want to impose restrictive covenants to address certain types of blight, Mr. Huff can certainly take note of that direction, and we'll bring you back some language. And if people have conversations with him about, the properties and what the board's inclination is, he can certainly mention that to them. And anyone who happens to be watching will be able to hear it directly from you all as well.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
a quick comment, if I may.
Yes, sir. I was getting ready to come to you because you're the last one.
Anyway, we talking about 3 houses in a neighborhood. In order for that to be enforced, the restricted covenants would need to cover the whole neighborhood, which probably is an impossibility now.
For sure.
So I think that's one point need to be added or mentioned. Put a restriction on this, what do you think about the rest of the neighborhood? So I think that would be a little bit difficult to do. And
You're right, we can only control what's within what we have our hands on.
And like I said, people put up things, objects, the building inspector may not even know. So who's gonna patrol that? And I've seen it done. And if you can consider that a subdivision, you gotta have a meeting of the homeowners in that neighborhood. So I don't know whether that was considered a subdivision part of that neighborhood, or it just lots added on to that neighborhood. That's what puzzles me about the restricted covenants. I don't know if we can do it without including the whole neighborhood or not.
No, sir. The restrictive covenants would only attach to the properties that the commission owns, and the commission would enforce those covenants. The commission does not have the power to apply restrictive covenants to properties it does not own. What the commission can do is recommend ordinance changes to the Board of Aldermen to address different types of blight that are within the government's purview.
Okay.
Okay.
Which you all have done in the past, which is why the redevelopment overlay exists today. So it's certainly a conversation worth having.
So we have all 3 properties, and we can either have one motion if we're in agreement for all 3. And the issue is, are we, what we're considering is putting them on the available for purchase list. And with that consideration of putting them on the available for purchase list is setting a price.
A
Minimum
minimum bid offer.
So the price we set will be the minimum bid,
Correct.
which could stand, it could get overturned. We don't have any control over that.
Not at this juncture, no.
Okay. And did I understand you correctly that anyone who wants to purchase it then comes before us? Just like any of the other properties that they...
According to your existing policy, yes.
Okay. So whether it is a one person per property, or a nonprofit that wants to purchase all three, or somebody that wants 2 out of 3, they will come to us with that.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you decide you want to deviate from that policy.
Okay.
One more quick question.
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna list those properties to an agency, or what's the process that we're gonna use as for selling those houses?
Very good question, Mr. Dillahunt. The statutes and the Redevelopment Commission statutes outline the processes by which the commission can convey property. Ordinarily and generally, this commission has made properties available for sale by upset bid. There's a list that's published on the Redevelopment Commission's website, and individuals who are interested in acquiring any property owned by the Redevelopment Commission would submit a written offer to purchase consistent with the statute. That has been the most common practice utilized. And I'll direct you to the chart that I've handed out during the various trainings that we have. There's some other methods that can be utilized, but upset bid has been the method that has been utilized most consistently.
So I think, are you asking, like, will this be on the MLS? I assume not.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it will not. It's because it's public property. It'll be on our sellable lots list on the city's website, it's the Redevelopment Commission, but the city has put our list on their main page, I believe, so you can see it both places. So to my knowledge, they will not be on the MLS.
No.
That is correct.
With the thought in mind, is the people that have no computer access. And there's a bunch of folks in New England that have no computer access, so.
I do keep a live paper copy at my office anytime, and if they make an appointment with me, I'm happy to drive around and give them a whole tour of all the properties we have available. So direct them my way. I'll help them out.
But I think maybe what you're saying, do we want to put for sale signs out in front of the yards? Is that what, so that?
More or less, yes.
And
With a contact number.
If you're inclined to move these properties to the sellable properties list, then you can give staff direction to put for sale signs out in the front yards and have them contact Mr. Huff at Development Services if they have any interest, and to market them in whatever way you direct them to do so. But the first threshold issue is, do 1, 2, or all of these properties go on the list? And if they do, at what minimum bid price?
I'll ask the question, are we ready to deal with this? Or, I mean, there's a lot of questions being floated. Is this?
I have one more question, and then I'll be
Okay.
ready to deal with it. So is this the upset bid process? They have to put down a percentage of what we say the minimum bid is.
Correct.
So what's the percentage?
I'm sorry?
What's the percentage?
The statute says you have to put down 5% on the
So
first, I think it's $1,000, but there's a methodology that's laid out in your offer to purchase firm that lets people know what they have to put down.
Can anybody do a ballpark of the math on a $160,000 house, what they would have to put down?
8,000? Is that?
8,000.
8, okay, so it's not very,
5% sticks. Does it, because I heard something about 5% of the first 1,000, and then there's a stair step up, so.
well, I just want to make sure we're not talking about like tying up $25,000 for two, you know what I mean? Like a huge amount, because that takes out some of your affordability or theirs. So that's not, folks don't have that kind of money sitting around, and a lender's not going to give it to you.
Right.
For a bid
Yeah,
process,
for a
right.
bid process. So you might take out some that are like FHA if that number is prohibitively high.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a reason if we think we're going to have no issue getting the appraised value, that's a reason to start some at 3/4 versus just a thought, but to start some in the 120, 125 range versus 160, but I don't know the percentage, that's why I'm asking. Because if your low-income person doesn't have that money, they can't, doesn't have access to $8,000, they can't take part in the process.
In order to place a deposit, you have to put 5% of the bid price.
It is the bid price.
So it is a solid 5.
It stops at, the initial bid is 5%, and to upset that bid, then there's a calculation about the first
Yeah,
1,000,
Okay.
et cetera.
You can't just say $5,001. You have to do
Correct,
the next increment that's allowed.
correct.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So foreshadowing what a process might look like, if he's hit that list with a number, there could potentially, one house, 5 people interested in it. We got 5 people in front of us next meeting making their presentation for their bid. Are they all gonna be at the same minimum bid number? Is the highest one at that point gonna come in front of us?
That's a very good question. I think that's a good question. And I would defer, the city clerk has managed the city's upset bid process for a very long time. And I don't know what the city's process has been when you receive multiple offers like on the same day. Which one makes it to the board, I'm not sure. From just a logistical standpoint, so we can get that information and bring it back to you. And my recommendation would be to utilize whatever process the city utilizes.
Question to staff. We have talked over a long period of time about making contact with different nonprofit agencies regarding these houses. What is the status of that?
A lot of interest. Unfortunately, no. Until these houses are placed on a sellable list, no offer can be engaged in. So we effectively, as long as they're not on the sellable list, no one can make a bid. So no one can go any further than where they are right now.
We can't negotiate it without them being on the sellable list?
That is correct.
Step one is, are they for sale?
If they're not for sale for the general public because they're public property, they're not for sale for anybody.
So, for example,
Okay.
City Hall is not on the city's sellable lots list. So if someone came to make an offer to purchase City Hall, it's not for sale, that offer would not be accepted and not very much of any conversation would be had.
So to have any further conversation with any of the interested parties that have filled my voicemail box for a couple of months now, we would have to move these to the sellable list.
Zeb, have you gotten any sense, have you talked through the deposit process with anybody in the upset bid? That's just what worries me. I don't know a lot of people who have that, like, cash sitting around and they can't get it from a lender yet.
Yes, and so I don't want to be premature in my comments. So there are mechanisms which could potentially make it possible for an affordable down payment to be secured. We just have to make sure the city clerk signs off on it. So we've worked that. We've worked through the general statute and gotten very creative, and hopefully we'll have something confirmed. But again, once we have something to confirm.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking, I think we're ready. I don't know why we would wait another meeting. I was just thinking between 6,000 and 8,000, that is a difference, but is it big enough to change the minimum price?
I will say for individuals, just as a broad piece of information, for individuals who are between under 80% of AMI here for this market and have a credit score above 640, they're eligible for some of the state's down payment assistance. And the way that happens is when they're approved, they get a general bond, which guarantees that down payment. And so that's the piece we're trying to see how it fits in the general statute. Did I say that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you guys have thought about
credit
this.
score of 640?
Yes. And those preferred lenders that we were talking about earlier that you asked, basically their whole business model is built on helping individuals get to that 640 threshold.
And they are 2-bedroom houses. All 3 of them are 2-bedroom.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we're ready enough to make a motion?
I will make a motion to add all 3 lots, 1002, 1004, and 1006 Walt Bellamy Avenue, to the Redevelopment Commission sellable lots list with a starting bid of $160,000.
Okay, we have a motion.
She did say 169 or 60?
160.
Okay.
Just to be clear, because there is a difference in each one of the appraisals that Beth mentioned, would you be willing to say the appraisal price
Yeah.
for each one of the three?
Mhm.
And with our consideration for our standard, or staff to give consideration for our usual caveats for restrictive covenants, as well as out parcel limitations, not locking anything in, but just mentioning, at least for conversational purposes, that that's on the table.
Yes, so how do we officially, I will change my motion to, so I think we need to handle them separately then if we're doing
That
a
would be
separate.
my recommendation.
Yeah.
So the motion as it stands right now is to move the 3 properties on Walt Bellamy Drive to the sellable properties list with a minimum bid of $160,000. I think I'm hearing now that, Commissioner Proctor, you want to modify that motion so that each property, the minimum bid will be its appraised value.
Right, so that would be $161,000 for 1,002 Walt Bellamy, $163,000 for 1,004 Walt Bellamy,
Mhm.
and $160,000 for 1,006 Walt Bellamy.
Okay. Does everybody understand that motion?
Yeah, I do.
And I'll second it.
And with the giving staff direction,
Well,
just that
we'll-
we're
that's-
generally.
We'll get to
second
the
part.
staff.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, well, that's my motion.
And that's your second, Mr. Strickland?
I second that motion.
Okay, we got 2 seconds.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
We have 2 seconds.
2 seconds. And the motion is this, I'm just going to recap it for my
Sure.
own benefit, is that each property will sell at its appraisal price as the minimum bid. Okay. Now, I know we've just been discussing it, but after the second, we probably need to open it back up for discussion, because that's where I'm going to ask you if we want to put covenants on it or direct staff to look at what we've been doing in the past and come up with the language for that. Is this,
Didn't Steve add that to the?
Well, it wasn't a part of our first
Okay.
motion, so we probably need to vote on the first motion.
So my
and then make another motion or
you can
not?
just give staff direction
Correct,
to
Okay,
bring conditions language back to you for your consideration and adoption at the next meeting. And you can also direct staff that any potential offerors should be advised that these projects, these homes may be subject to certain restrictive covenants in the deeds, which is already in your offer to purchase document.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Just preemptively, I see a lot of head shaking, so I'm
I
going to take
do.
that
I'm
as
like,
direction.
everybody, we have discussed it, so we'll go with a roll call vote for this? Have
Sure.
a motion and a second, okay?
Yes. All right. Jimmy Dillahunt,
Yes.
Kip Peregrine,
Yes.
Beth Walker,
Yes.
Sarah Proctor,
Yes.
Shara Bryant,
Yes.
Steve Strickland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And now, just so the record is clear, giving staff direction to come back to you with some language for restrictive covenants to address outbuildings, junk cars, outbuildings and junk cars, for your consideration and review at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there something else?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is, those 2 items are, usually we put covenants on everything we make available for purchase, so I think that's in line with what we've been doing for years. Okay. So we're on the next, I like how all 3 of those rolled into one agenda item. It's back to you, Executive Director, for the staff report.
All right. Well, good evening, Redevelopment Commission. It's good to be with you this evening. I wanted to bring to your attention a couple of calendar items. Number one, next week on the 16th, the International Economic Development Council will hold a focus group at 10 o'clock. You should have received an email. If any of you are are available. You all have been invited. I do just need a head count. So if you can answer that email and let me know that you'll be able to attend. I know that economic development and community development are always closely tied together. So the Voice of the Redevelopment Commission would be a very important one. The following day, on April 17th, the Housing Authority we will be hosting a community housing roundtable at the Housing Authority. Several members of the community that I've had the pleasure of working with and talking to suggested that we get together and pool and talk about how we can pool our resources to bring affordable housing to New Bern. So it'll be a preliminary conversation, but it'll be an important one. And any commissioners that are available to come, I would encourage you to come. That discussion will be held from 11:30 to 1 o'clock, again at the Housing Authority, and a lunch will be served. The other thing I wanted to share is that 209 Bryant Street closed. Proceeds have been designated to the RDC with the purchase price of $5,650. The net proceeds minus the advertising cost are $5,456.80, which will be added to our general balance. The general revenue for the year 23-24 with this sale is $22,378 in property sales for this commission this fiscal year. Let's see. As a matter of housekeeping, in reviewing our records with the city clerk, we have only one commissioner yet to file a statement of disclosure, and so I would just encourage Mr. Dillahunt, if you can get me your statement of disclosure as soon as possible. I do have another copy if you need that copy. We'd love to make sure that we are 100% in compliance as soon as possible with our general statute. At your direction at our last meeting, you directed me to figure out a mechanism whereby we could begin to compile a interested buyers list. I have begun the process working with our public information officer, and what it will turn into is an entire web page revamp that's a little bit more user friendly. We're going to put some pictures of our lots so that people have an idea of what they're looking at instead of just an Excel sheet. You will recall an email in the last week where I asked you all for your smiling faces, and I'm pleased to say that you have all answered that email. And if you haven't, I stole from your Facebook, so that's okay. And so that will be that will be included on the web page so that the public has an idea of who this body is and the work that we do. And so I anticipate within the next couple of months, certainly before the close of summer, we'll be launching the new web page, which will be way more interactive and include a mechanism whereby we can begin to collect a database of interested buyers. Last thing, May 30th, there will be a town hall with Commissioner B. Smith at 6:30 at the Senior Center, and she has expressly invited the Redevelopment Commission to come and be involved in that conversation. So if you'd like any more information on that or would like to be involved in that, please see me after the meeting.
Can you say the date again for that?
May 30th.
May 30th, okay.
Yes. And at this point, I am open for questions.
I have a question or comment, if I may.
Certainly.
The house on Walt Bellamy They're beautiful houses. They're 2-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
From my knowledge and sense of knowing, I think the demand is more open for 3-bedroom houses. And being in the business, I get more calls for 3 bedrooms. And if HUD buy them, I think the market price for a 3-bedroom house is $14.50. For a 2-bedroom house is $12.50. So I think we really need to consider building 3-bedroom houses versus the 2-bedroom houses.
Okay.
And the First Avenue project, I was talking to the director. I would advise all the board members to ride down First Avenue and get them maybe in your mind what can be done to improve 3rd Avenue. There's one house that the CPG program built, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. It's a house worth looking at. 3-bedroom house, a white house on the right-hand side, since that's a 1-bedroomer. So I would advise the commissioners to look at that and look at all the vacant lots that are available on First Avenue. I think it's a project worthwhile to invest in it. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay.
There's no more questions. Madam Chair, that concludes my staff report.
Okay. Well, and Commissioner Dillahunt has jumped into our next item, which is the new business. So I take your comment out of the staff report and put it into the new business.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
I thought
No.
you was open for questions.
That's okay. And that I'm just, so that was great input there. And is there any other new business? Would any of the, are there any project teams that need to bring up any information or progress of anything?
The West A Street, give you a briefing, the houses are gone, and some of the trees are gone, some more need to go. We are kind of waiting for title report.
That's in the works, Mr. Paragoy. Those properties have changed hands a number of times in a very brief amount of time. So that project is a labor of love. So I hope to be able to report back with you with the title opinion very soon, but it is a process that is taking me some time.
And that's mainly on the piece that we got from the county.
No, sir. It's mainly on the piece that you got from a private developer.
From the 710?
Correct.
Okay, so there was never any title work done when that was given to us, the 710?
I will tell you that you all received a quitclaim deed from 710 about 10 days into my tenure in this position.
Yeah.
And at that time, this commission was oriented very differently as far as a staff and support role. So I cannot speak as to what, if anything, previous staff did before accepting that deed.
Okay. But you are looking at the county piece also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. But so the houses, the structures have been demolished now?
Yes, they're gone.
And to that end, I do just want to say thank you for the record to Public Works that expedited that for us, and give a shout out to the fire department, which had a burn training before they were demolished, and they didn't burn down any other house except the one they meant to.
Excellent.
I was going to ask how that went.
Our next steps on that will be getting survey work done. We will bring a proposal for a scope of work for survey work to occur
Okay,
at the next meeting.
Okay.
nice.
So I assume the railroad stuff went fine, or is that part of Jamie's analysis?
I think that's part of my analysis. Mr.
Yeah, it
Paragoy.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
And the surveyor, that's one of the things that the surveyor also will be able to clarify.
Boundaries of
Yeah.
where that
Yeah.
property, okay.
Absolutely. This,
All right.
after the survey comes the subdivision for that.
Well, that'll be in the scope of work. There'll be
Yeah.
a list of recombination map and then subdivision creation. And it goes to how we go about that. It'll also, how much, we'll find out exactly how much linear frontage we have on this road, so we know what kind of lot yield we'll get out of that piece of property. And also the fact that, as Jimmy mentioned, we had already talked about having a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom houses there to expand that market a little bit. So they might require a little more space.
Sure.
So we'll have to blend all that together into a site plan.
Okay. Well, great, thank you for that. You had a good update for us tonight.
Well,
All right, any other new business? Go around the room. Commissioner Strickland, Commissioner Bryant, Proctor, thank you, and Mr. Dillahunt.
Yeah.
Okay. To my knowledge, we don't have a need to go to closed session tonight?
No, ma'am.
Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So that leads us to the last agenda item. I need
make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion. Do I
Second.
have a second? Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Who gets second?
Mr. Dillon?
Go ahead.
Perfect.
Okay, I heard all ayes. Any,
Yeah.
all opposed?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Then we are adjourned.